Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Kirsty and this is Stuck in the Mud. If you're finding my videos helpful, it'd be great if you can like them, and if you're not already, why not subscribe? It's free, and the bigger we can get this OCD community, the more people we can help and feel less alone and isolated, because I've been there and it's not a good place to be. So in today's video, I'm really touching on a time in my life that was very, very difficult, and it's going to be a hard one to discuss because I was in probably my worst place I'd ever been with OCD, and this all revolves around my children. And it happened after the birth of my third child, my third daughter, and she was coming up to around, I think, 6 months in age, and I started to get very regular intrusive thoughts again, because it's something I've experienced before in different ways, different forms, because OCD can pop up anywhere. And it really did scare me, this particular intrusive thought, because it was about harming my child. And I had very, intense, visual thoughts. I had all of it. It was just all scary, and it was such a frightening time, because that is the last thing I wanted to do, was to harm my child. And I do believe it is quite common after having a baby, in the postpartum period, that you might get postpartum OCD. And because I'd experienced it in other times in my life, I've had it since I was 5 years old, it's not unusual that this would crop up in this particular time period, because I'd had it, perinatally before, which, I had before the birth of my first daughter. I had a bad time then. And then, like I say, funnily enough, everything was fine after my second daughter, and nothing affected me in that respect. But after the birth of my third daughter, it cropped up again, and it really scared me, because the thoughts I was getting was something that I'd never really experienced to that degree before. I'd had fleeting intrusive thoughts about these things, these subjects, but I'd never experienced it to the degree it came up after my third daughter. And it was all around harming my child. And, it's the worst thing you could possibly think. And that's what OCD does. It latches onto, the things that you value the most. And this one, I couldn't get my head round. I couldn't comprehend how I could even think these things. And it is a scary time, when you get thoughts that just go against everything in your true nature. This is nothing to do with you and how you would act. It's nothing that would be possible for you. These were giving me a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic. I was having constant panic attacks. And it was truly, truly scary, truly frightening thing to experience. And I know many of you out there are probably experiencing this now. And I hold my hands up to you. Getting through the days with this was really hard. And I'd hate anyone to be out there feeling alone with this, because it's actually really common. It's a common thing to think about, even if you don't have children. Because let me just say, I'd had all the POCD thoughts before I even had children. Something triggered me, and I got a particular thought that I couldn't believe I was even thinking, because I was like, well, what does this say about me? Why am I thinking these things? And it was in regards to children, and it would just be completely opposite to my nature and who I truly was. And it was frightening. It was extremely frightening, because you're like, where has this come from? But something must have triggered me, whether it's something I read in the media, and then being in a situation, with a child, and it just, like, OCD ran away with it. And that's what OCD does. It latch onto something and just run away and take you down a path where you're trying to question everything, question your reality, question who you are as a person, whether you're capable of something. And the more we go down that road, the bigger it gets. And that's where I've changed now, and that's why these things don't affect me to the degree they used to, because I'm very in tune now of how to deal with it, and knowing that these thoughts are just not who I am, because I think as an OCD sufferer we feel very guilty for feeling, even thinking these thoughts. We're feeling all these uncomfortable emotions with it as well. We're feeling a lot of guilt and shame, doubt. We're feeling so anxious because of these thoughts. We don't enjoy them, and that's it's OCD. We don't enjoy these thoughts. We're not happy that they're there. We want them gone, and that is the problem, because we want them gone. We think by involving ourselves with it and actually trying to work it out, like why we're thinking this for a start. What does this say about me? What I need to come to some kind of conclusion about this. What to why I'm even thinking this. But the thing is, we never get there with OCD, because OCD just doesn't work like that. OCD wants your full attention, and we can't just switch it off. It doesn't work that way. We can't rationalize our way out of OCD. We're different. We're built differently. Our brain doesn't work in the same way. We have that lack of communication. There's something different. We're biologically different, and we can't fix it with being rational. Anybody can have these kind of intrusive thoughts, anybody. And people will tell you they don't have them, but they do. Whether it's this type or another type, they will get intrusive thoughts, but they kind of switch off from it so quickly, because they're like, oh, that was a weird thought to have, and they've moved on. They barely will even remember having that kind of intrusive thought. But whereas us, the OCD sufferer, who is biologically different, our brains are missing that communication where we can kind of rationalize things. We will just go to town with it. We'll want to figure it out. We'll want to wondering why we're having these thoughts, and wondering what's wrong with us, but there's nothing wrong with us. We have OCD. That is actually what's wrong. We have OCD, but we're not capable of committing the kind of thoughts that we'll be getting, especially in this particular subtype of OCD. You just can't, you couldn't do it. You could not do it. And just because you have these thoughts doesn't mean you would. And the tricky thing is with OCD, it'll sometimes bring on a lot of sensations with it. And the more we involve ourselves with that, the bigger that gets as well, because we start monitoring our bodily sensations and the things we feel, and what does that say about us? Does that make us even more guilty, than having the thought itself? We constantly look for things that will admit guilt about why we're thinking these things, and you'll never get there, because you will not act on these thoughts you're having. You just won't. And the thing with OCD, it's very clever, and like I said, when I talked a lot about false memory OCD in my videos, and the thing is, that's where OCD gets conniving and clever. It will try and make you think that you've acted in a certain way when it never even happened, or you may have done something and then it's twisted it and said, well, this could have happened, and what did that mean by that particular action? It's very clever the way it will try and implicate you of something that never even occurred, or it wasn't even meant in a certain way, and it's frightening when you're in that situation, because you question your reality, you question who you are as a person. And I was the same. I went on with this for quite some time. It went on for longer than a year, when I was in this bad place and I was having therapy. I got better when I was on medication, and that definitely helped me to do the therapy. And I really do value the fact that, medication can actually help you to actually do the therapy and leave those thoughts alone. Because the more I did that, the more I left those kind of intrusive thoughts alone, the easier it got. I was able to not listen to OCD. It wasn't as loud anymore, because OCD gets frightening and loud. It's there going, you know, you need to figure this out. You need to find out for sure that this didn't happen, or you wouldn't be capable of doing this, you know, X, Y, Z. You know, it's wanting you to figure out, and, you know, you're on high alert all the time because you're waiting for the next intrusive thought, you know, the next sensation, the next, you know, feeling that you're getting to kind of put you at ease and kind of give you that relief that this isn't something that you're capable of. And that's where I was in this period of time, because I'm the last person that would harm anyone. I can't even harm a fly, for goodness sake. You know, I'm always the one in the house that's trying to save the spiders and put them outside safely. I couldn't even, you know, there's just nothing in me that could, you know, commit these awful intrusive thoughts I was having. And, you know, you condemn yourself because you're like, well, I'm thinking it, so what does that say about me? You know, you really do. You really hold yourself to account, and it's none of these things align with who you are as a person. And I tell you this, anyone that is suffering OCD out there, you're a sensitive individual, and is it any wonder that we soak in all this stuff that's in the media, you know, it's in our environment. We hear about all this stuff all the time. It's no wonder that, you know, we absorb all this information and OCD latches onto it because you're so far apart from any of these things that are in the media, you know, all the social media, you know, posts we hear, and, you know, the hate towards certain things in society, which is rightly so, but because we are so sensitive, we latch onto those things and we make them bigger than they actually are. You know, we hold ourselves to account for even thinking these things. You know, and as I've grown and I've realised what OCD is about and what it will do, you know, what it's capable of, I've realised that, you know, any thought is allowed. We are allowed to think any of these things. It doesn't mean anything about you. You know, we hold ourselves, you know, we feel guilty for thinking these things. You know, we're already like, we've got the cuffs on, you know, we're like, I've thought this, you know, I'm a bad person, you know, I need to be taken away. I can't live with these thoughts. You know, that was the first place I found myself in a real suicidal place before even thinking these kind of things about my children. You know, it just was the worst, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. You know, people don't understand, and I think this is it. It's such a shameful thing, you know, to think. And people don't understand that it's just a thought. You know, this is not anything in your character. It's not who you are as a person. And you shouldn't feel bad for thinking these things because they're out there all the time. You know, you can't help. But because you're so sensitive as an OCD individual, you will definitely hook into these things, especially if something triggers you. Like, for me, it was, I think, you know, someone had had a child, or, you know, like I said, my own experience of having children, you know, that would have triggered me. And, you know, you're just in a really bad place sometimes when you're more susceptible to getting triggered by these things and actually latching onto it. And it can happen to anyone. It can happen to men. It can happen to women. It doesn't matter who you are, you know. Like I said, you can have children, you don't have children, it doesn't matter. But, you know, we value all these things, whether we have children or not. You know, we value that, you know, we care about people. We care, and we hate these things that are happening in society. But because, you know, it's a taboo subject, and, you know, we hold these things in contempt, you know, we latch onto them because they're the worst things you could possibly think. And that's what OCD does. It really triggers us, and it will latch onto the worst case scenario. And that's what it did with me. And it was a really terrifying time. You know, I was in a place where I wasn't on medication at that particular time. I found myself in the crisis centre of the mental health unit at the hospital. I just wanted it all to end. You know, I wanted to be here, but I just wanted all the thoughts to end. And that's where I ended up on some kind of sedative. You know, I had to move away from my home at that time. I had to move in with my mum and dad because I was ready to commit myself into a mental health unit at that time. I was like, you need to take me away. But they said that wouldn't be the best place for me with OCD. They knew it was OCD, and this is the thing. When you actually speak to mental health professionals, they knew it was OCD. But I was in such a place of doubt at that time because I was questioning everything. I was involving myself with all these thoughts and feelings and sensations. It can feel like an urge as well. I will say this. You can feel sensations, and especially in this particular subtype of OCD, you can feel like, it'll feel like an urge. You think, well, is it an urge to do something terrible? No, you're not going to act on it. You will not act on these thoughts. It's not an urge, but OCD will make it feel like that. It will make it feel like it's an urge, but you hate these things. We don't like these thoughts. We want them away. We wouldn't want to get them away and feel so much anxiety and panic if we were enjoying this. There's nothing enjoyable about it, and that is an important thing to say. This is not who you are as a person. You would not commit any of these things. As much as OCD will try and convince you otherwise, it's just not true. So I had some time away from my family. I didn't really want to be around my children at that time because I was so scared of being around them, and that's an awful place to be. As a new mum again, I had young children at home, and I just didn't want to be around them. I didn't feel safe around them. But I was the safest the ironic thing with this is you are the safest person around because OCD will latch onto people, you're sensitive, you're a highly sensitive individual, and it will latch onto your worst fears as a person. Your worst fears is that you could be that person, and it's not true. OCD lies. So anyway, I had some time away. I got back onto some medication. That's where I actually found clomipramine, which is the gold standard in OCD. It's a very old drug, but it saved my life at that time. It really did. I got back into therapy and things settled down. I wouldn't say I was perfect, and I was still dealing with intrusive thoughts on the daily, and it went on for quite some time, but I was definitely on the way to a path of recovery, and that OCD didn't rear its ugly head again. I'd kind of gotten past that, and OCD, as it tends to do, it will find another way out, the path of least resistance. We may have got over one particular type of OCD, but then it will find its way out somewhere else. And at times when you're dealing with one type of OCD, like I was dealing with the POCD around that time, I would want my old OCD back. I'd be begging on my knees, give me like contamination OCD back, not to take anything away from anyone suffering from that, because I know it's difficult and it's devastating all the same. But at that time, because when OCD moves on to something else, you will think like, give me the other one back, I can handle that one, I can't handle this one. But OCD moves around. It's I think someone's likened it to whack-a-mole. It's just finding another way out for you to get hooked in and gripped onto it and trying to figure everything out. But I'm so much more aware now that that's what OCD does. And so it doesn't trip me up the same. I get intrusive thoughts. I still have OCD, but it doesn't affect me to the same degree. It doesn't hook me in, and it doesn't take over my life the same anymore. And that's where I want you to be. That's where I want you to be, in a place of healing where it doesn't control you to the same degree anymore. It's not in control of your life. It doesn't limit your life, because that's what OCD does. It takes away your time and a happy life that you should be living. You deserve that. You don't deserve to have OCD controlling you like it does, because this is what it is. This is OCD. You are not capable of the things, the intrusive thoughts that OCD will try and make you believe. It's just not in your nature. And I want you to believe that, because this is not an enjoyable time for us. When we're going through things like this, it's horrendous. We just want it gone. And that's something I've really had to learn throughout all my different subtypes of OCD over the years. I've had to learn that by trying to get rid of everything, get rid of OCD, it just backfires. We're making everything bigger. And the more we involve ourselves with it, it gets bigger. And I really had to learn that the hard way. Like I said, I had this for 40 years. It's a long time. But I'm much more aware now that it doesn't help. It doesn't help. It doesn't make it go away. You can't push OCD away. We have to kind of come to a level of understanding and acceptance that it's there, but we don't push it away. We let it be there, let it hang out. And that's going to feel difficult at first. Letting those kind of thoughts be there is going to be hard, but the more we can practice doing that, the easier they get, and they do dissolve away, because I found I gained more clarity the more I did that. I think, well, this is ridiculous. This is so irrational. I'd never do any of these things that OCD is trying to make me believe. It's just not possible. And I definitely gained more clarity as time went on, and the more I left these thoughts alone. But the more we involve ourselves, the more we latch on and try and figure everything out, the bigger it gets, the more confusing it gets. It really is a confusing time where you question your reality. You question who you are, and that's not a good place to be for anyone. So I really hope this video has helped you today to understand a bit more about, harm OCD in relation to children and POCD. I urge anyone going through this right now to understand that this is OCD. This is not you. This is not who you are as a person, and it could never be. And I really do hope my videos are helping you to see this and see that there is hope. You can get better from this. Look at me, I'm living proof. I couldn't see me getting better from this particular, time when I was going through this kind of OCD. This was 10 years ago. I didn't see myself recovering, but here I am today, and I'm trying to help you guys, because that is what I want to do. I want to help people going through this, because you don't deserve to be. You deserve to be living a fulfilling life without OCD just, taking the reins and controlling you. And I know you can get there. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.